The red carpet stumble. The crowd was electric that evening. Flashing lights, reporters shouting names, and a sea of eager fans lined the barricades outside the Grand Old Theater in Los Angeles. It was the world premiere of Shadows of Light, a highly anticipated film that reunited Keanu Reeves and Ana de Armas. People had waited for hours to catch a glimpse of their favorite stars. Among them, a young girl in a wheelchair held up a hand-painted sign that read, "I believe in kindness because of you, Keanu." Keanu arrived first. Dressed in a simple black suit, his calm presence stood out in a world of noise. He took his time, greeting fans, shaking hands, and signing every single autograph handed to him. He even bent down to speak gently with the girl in the wheelchair. "Thank you for believing in kindness," he whispered, placing a gentle hand over hers. She smiled with teary eyes, and her mother tried not to cry. Reporters swarmed around him. They shouted questions about the movie, about his co-stars, about his life. He answered patiently, but his eyes kept checking the entrance. He was waiting. And then she arrived. Ana de Armas stepped out of the car in a flowing silver dress that shimmered like moonlight. The crowd erupted. She smiled, waved, and took her first steps onto the red carpet. But as her heel hit a small bump in the carpet's edge, something unexpected happened. Her shoe twisted beneath her, and she stumbled hard. There was a sharp gasp from the crowd. The cameras clicked wildly. A few reporters laughed. One even whispered, "There goes the graceful entrance." But before anyone could react further, one man moved. Keanu. He dashed forward without hesitation. Not caring for the cameras or the chaos, he reached her just as she began to fall. He caught her with both arms, steadying her gently. Ana looked up, surprised, her eyes wide. "Keanu, I've got you," he said softly. "You're okay." Her heel had snapped. She tried to stand on her own, but it was no use. She wobbled again, nearly collapsing. The red carpet had turned into a stage of embarrassment, and whispers were already spreading. Ana's face flushed with humiliation. She reached down to take off the broken shoe, but Keanu stopped her. What he did next silenced the entire crowd. Without a word, Keanu bent down on one knee, not to tie his own shoe. Not as a gesture of performance, but to offer her his hand and remove both of her shoes for her. The crowd stared in disbelief as Keanu Reeves, the global icon, held her broken heel in one hand and helped her step out of the other. "Come on," he said, rising slowly. "Let's walk this together." Barefoot, Ana looked around. "Keanu, this is embarrassing." He shook his head. "What's embarrassing is how people forget what it means to be human." Then he did something even more shocking. He took off his own shoes and placed them beside hers on the edge of the red carpet. And together, barefoot and smiling, they walked hand in hand past the cameras, past the whispers, past the fake glamour that so often covers true grace. The reporters didn't know what to say. One of them stammered, "Mr. Reeves, why would you—" Keanu stopped. He looked at the reporters, then at the cameras. And then he said something that would trend worldwide within minutes. Kindness doesn't need a script. There was silence. The cameras kept flashing, but now their lenses weren't focused on fashion or missteps. They captured something real, something rare. Once inside the theater, Ana held his arm tighter than before. "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved me out there." Keanu smiled. "No, you stood back up. I just reminded you." But behind the scenes, something else was happening. A famous producer had watched everything unfold on a live feed. He wasn't impressed by the act of kindness. In fact, he was furious. Because Ana had been his next lead in a high-budget film, and he believed image mattered more than soul. He turned to his assistant and said, "I want her removed. No one stumbles at my premiere." And so began a quiet battle that neither Keanu nor Ana saw coming. one that would test their resilience, humility, and courage in ways they never expected. Meanwhile, outside, the girl in the wheelchair smiled. Again. She didn't care about shoes or carpets or fame. She turned to her mother and said, "See, Mom, kindness is real." The mother hugged her tightly, not knowing that by the end of this story, their lives would also change forever. The quiet punishment, the premiere was over, but the whispers continued long into the night. After the barefoot walk, people couldn't stop talking about Keanu's unexpected act. The video had gone viral. Hashtags like Posh Kindness Walk and Barefoot arose, were trending in over 40 countries. Fans called it the most human moment in Hollywood. But behind the curtains, another story was unfolding. The next morning, Anna's phone buzzed. She was expecting messages of support, and there were many, from fans, close friends, even her old schoolmates. But one message stood out. "Your role in Eclipse Born has been reassigned. Best wishes. No explanation, no warning. Just that." Anna stared at her screen in disbelief. Eclipse Born was going to be the biggest film of the year. It was the kind of role actors dreamed about, and it was gone. She called her agent. "Tell me this is a mistake." But her agent sighed. "I warned them. I told them what happened wasn't your fault. I begged them not to do this, but they said you looked fragile, that you broke the illusion of stardom." Anna felt like the air had been punched out of her chest. "I tripped, not failed." "I know," the agent whispered. "But they don't care." Anna didn't cry, not yet. She just sat on the edge of her bed, barefoot again, staring at the wall. She thought about the night before, about Keanu holding her hand, about walking through the storm of judgment without shoes, but with dignity. Had it all backfired? Meanwhile, in a quiet cafe across town, Keanu was reading the morning headlines. He didn't usually like being the center of attention, but today, every major news outlet had his picture on the front page. But then his phone rang. "Keanu?" Anna's voice was soft, but steady. "They dropped me. The producer dropped me." He didn't say anything right away. He knew how that felt. He'd lost roles too, just not for showing kindness. "I'm so sorry, Anna." "Don't be," she replied. "I'm not calling for sympathy. I just wanted you to know the truth." Keanu leaned back. "Thank you for telling me. But I think this isn't the end. It's the beginning of something they can't control." Anna let out a breath. "What do you mean?" "I have an idea," he said slowly. "But first, would you like to meet someone today?" That afternoon, Keanu picked her up in a modest old motorcycle with a second helmet in hand. "Not everything we do has to be red carpet," he smiled. He took her to a film school in a low-income neighborhood. The students were buzzing with energy and creativity, even though many didn't have the latest gear or industry connections. Inside one of the classrooms, a group of teenagers was filming a short movie using borrowed lights and hand-me-down costumes. "This is Danny," Keanu said, introducing her to a young girl with a shaved head and a camera strapped to her shoulder. "She's directing her first short." Danny looked stunned. Are you Ana de Armas?" Anna smiled kindly. "Yes, but more importantly, I hear you're the director here." Danny beamed. Keanu knelt down beside one of the kids holding a boom mic made out of duct tape and an old broom handle. "This is the future," he said quietly to Anna. "They don't care about fake perfection. They care about story, emotion, truth." Anna felt her chest rise in a way it hadn't since the premiere. Here, in this modest room, she felt respected. Not for what she wore or how she looked, but for who she was. Later that night, as they sat on the roof of a nearby building, Anna turned to Keanu. "Why did you really bring me here?" He looked at her seriously. "Because I've seen what the industry does to people who choose kindness. It tries to punish them, but we don't have to let it. What if no one casts me again?" "She asked." Keanu smiled gently. "Then we make our own film. And we cast you. She stared at him, eyes wide. You're serious. Dead serious, he nodded. A story about humanity, struggle, rising again. Anna felt tears well up. You'd do that for me? No, he said softly. I'd do that with you. While they talked, neither of them knew that someone else was listening from the other side of a rooftop vent. A gossip blogger named Travis, who had been following Keanu for weeks, hoping for a scandal. But what he heard tonight shook him in a different way. He didn't find dirt. He found purpose. And in the morning, he'd write a headline that would change everything. The headline that turned the tide the next morning. A headline took over the internet. Keanu Reeves to produce film starring Ana de Armas. No big studios, just big hearts. It was written by Travis Hart, a well-known gossip blogger who usually thrived on celebrity drama. But this time, his tone was different. He detailed the story of the red carpet moment, Anna's quiet removal from Eclipseborn, and how Keanu responded not with anger, but with action. The article ended with a line that touched people around the world. They stripped her of a role, so he gave her a new one, not for revenge, but to remind Hollywood what art is really about. Within hours, the blog post exploded. People across the globe started commenting, sharing, and defending Anna. Hashtags like Frauen Stand With Anna and Frauen Keanu's film began trending. Independent filmmakers offered equipment, fan artists began drawing posters, and a small crowdfunding page set, up by one of the film students, just as a test, crossed $50,000 by noon. Anna sat in her apartment, stunned as the numbers kept growing. Keanu, did you see this? She said over the phone, her voice trembling. I did, he replied, calmly. But you need to see something else too. An hour later, he arrived at her door holding a stack of printed letters. These are from people all over the world, he said. Not studios, not critics, just people. Anna opened the top envelope. It was from a young girl in Argentina. Saw you fall, and then I saw you stand back up. I fall a lot too. Thank you for being brave. The next was from a retired nurse in Italy. You showed my granddaughter it's okay to stumble. She's learning to walk again after surgery, and now she says she wants to walk like Anna did. Anna's eyes blurred with tears. She clutched the letters to her chest and whispered, This means more than any movie deal ever could. Keanu nodded. This is why we tell stories. They got to work that very week. Keanu called a few trusted friends in the indie scene. Not powerful executives, but people with heart. Anna began sketching out ideas for a character she could connect with deeply, and the students from the small film school offered to help however they could. They had no budget, no studio support, no corporate marketing, just honesty and each other. Meanwhile, the producer who had fired Anna, Martin Creed, was watching all this unfold with growing frustration. He had expected the story to disappear in a week. Instead, it was growing legs of its own. His assistant entered his office. Sir, the press is asking for your comments on why you dropped Anna. Don't answer, Martin snapped. We control the narrative. But he was wrong. Across the internet, actors began sharing their own stories of being punished for being vulnerable. A-list stars posted videos saying they would support Keanu and Anna's film. A few even offered to donate anonymously, and then came the biggest surprise of all. A letter arrived at Keanu's doorstep, handwritten, from an old friend, Tom Hanks. Dear Keanu and Anna, what you're doing isn't just brave, it's necessary. Hollywood has forgotten its soul, and you're helping us remember. If you need me, in front of the camera or behind it, I'm in. With love, Tom. Keanu handed the letter to Anna without a word. She read it, smiled, and for the first time since the night she stumbled, laughed with joy. We're really doing this, aren't we? Yes, Keanu said softly, and they're going to feel it. But just as everything seemed to be rising, a shadow fell over their progress. One of the students helping on the set, Danny, received a threatening letter. It was unsigned, but clear. Stop filming with them, or your school funding disappears. Anna and Keanu gathered the students. If this is putting anyone in danger, we stop right now, Keanu said. But Danny stood up, fire in her eyes. No, we've waited our whole lives to tell a story that matters, and we're not afraid. Anna placed a hand on Danny's shoulder. You remind me of who I used to be. Keanu looked around the room, at faces young and old, ready to risk everything. For truth, he smiled. Then let's make something unforgettable. The fight for the frame, they called it Project Barefoot. What started as a quiet idea between Keanu and Anna became a movement. A film not funded by studios but by people. It was a story of falling down and getting back up. A story without capes, explosions, or billion-dollar sets. Just pain, truth, and hope. They found an abandoned community theater in the valley and turned it into a studio. The windows were cracked. The floor creaked. There was dust in every corner. But to them, it felt alive. It felt honest. Keanu came. In every morning before the others, sweeping floors, fixing lights, carrying equipment. Anna helped build the sets with her bare hands. The students learned camera angles by trial and error. Meals were shared on the floor. Scripts were adjusted daily. Scenes were rehearsed until everyone cried. Not because it was required, but because it felt real. The story they were filming was based on a fictional character named Marisol, a young woman who lost everything after a public mistake, and the quiet man who helps her believe again, not in fame, but in herself. Anna played Marisol. Keanu played the quiet man. But behind the lens, the real drama was boiling. Martin Creed, the producer who dropped Anna, had found out about Project Barefoot and was not pleased. He saw the attention they were getting. He heard the whispers in the industry. And worst of all, he saw the growing belief that studios were no longer the only gatekeepers of success. He called an emergency meeting with his legal team. Shut it down, he growled. I want them buried. Find out if they're using any copyrighted material. Check their permits. Find something. But sir, his assistant said quietly, their permits are clean. The story is original. The cast is unpaid. They're protected. Martin clenched his jaw. Then make something up. A week later, during a night shoot, a city inspector showed up unexpectedly. You're in violation of noise codes, he said. This area is residential. We've kept sound levels within limits, Danny argued, holding up a decibel reader. The inspector glanced at it and frowned. Still, complaint's been filed. You'll need to shut down for the night. Anna stepped forward. Can we at least finish the final scene? It's just 5 more minutes. He shook his head. If I let you, I lose my job. Keanu nodded, in understanding. Then we wait. The team packed up, exhausted, frustrated, but not broken. They came back the next morning, and the next, each time finding new obstacles, missing equipment, permits questioned, funding delayed, the pressure mounted. The students looked tired. Anna's eyes grew heavier. One day, while setting up a shot, Anna sat down suddenly and buried her face in her hands. Keanu, she whispered, what if they win? What if the world is just too heavy? He sat beside her quietly. After a long pause, he said, You remember that girl at the premiere? The one in the wheelchair? Anna nodded slowly. She believed in you because you stood back up. Not because you sparkled. Not because you were perfect. But because you were real. If we quit now, we teach her that kindness loses. Are you ready to teach her that? Anna wiped her face and stood up. No, not today. They pushed forward again. Then came a miracle. Tom Hanks arrived on set one afternoon without fanfare. No assistants, no cameras. Just him, a backpack, and a warm smile. I brought sandwiches, he said. And I heard you needed a train conductor. For that dream sequence. Keanu laughed. You serious? As serious as Oscar night, Tom said, already pulling out a conductor's hat. His appearance reignited everything. Media caught wind. Fans began showing up to support. More actors offered their help. Food trucks donated meals. A lighting company dropped off extra rigs. And soon, Project Barefoot became the talk of Hollywood. Not because of its scale, but because of its soul. But the pressure also grew. Martin Creed realized he was losing control of the narrative. His investors questioned his decisions. His social media accounts flooded with the shame on Martin. And then came the final blow. One of his own assistants leaked an audio recording of him saying, "She was weak. She tripped. I don't work with people." Who fall? The backlash was immediate. Anna didn't post anything in response. She didn't need to. The video of her walking barefoot beside Keanu had already said everything. One night before the final day of filming, Anna stood outside the theater alone. Keanu walked up beside her. "Last scene tomorrow," he said quietly. "How do we end it?" she asked. Keanu thought for a long moment. "We end it the way it began. Someone falls. But this time, everyone helps them back up." Anna nodded, her eyes filled with something fierce. Hope. The Barefoot premiere, the final day of filming, arrived with soft sunlight pouring into the old theater. Everyone showed up early. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Something about the story had become personal for every single person involved. The last scene they had to shoot was simple on paper. Marisol, Anna's character, would trip again, this time in a crowded street. But instead of laughter or mockery, strangers would come from all sides to help her. No dialogue, just silence, footsteps, and hands lifting her up. It was the scene Keanu and Anna had rewritten together. They called it The Return. They didn't hire extras. They asked real people, students, neighbors, volunteers, even some who had donated online. The street was blocked off and the cameras were ready. Anna took her position, barefoot again, just like that first night. Her feet were cold against the pavement, but she felt strong. "Action!" Danny called out, her voice steady behind the camera. Anna began walking slowly through the crowd. Then, on cue, she stumbled. For a breath, no one moved. Then hands reached for her. Someone picked up her fallen bag. Another person steadied her elbow. Someone else gave her a soft smile. None of it was scripted. None of it was acted. It was real. The camera captured everything. Anna stood tall again, looking around at the sea of strangers. And then she did something unscripted. She took one step forward and offered her own hand to someone nearby, helping an older man off the curb. The cameras kept rolling. No one yelled, "Cut." They didn't need to. When the scene ended, the entire street erupted in quiet claps and hugs. Anna cried, not because she was sad, but because she felt whole. Keanu walked over, clapping, gently. "You did it." "We did it," she whispered. Over the next few weeks, the film was edited in a cramped back room using donated software and late-night coffee runs. Every scene was poured over with love and care. When it was finally ready, they didn't rent a high-end theater in Beverly Hills. Instead, they returned to the same community theater where they had filmed most of it. The students painted the walls. Volunteers brought folding chairs. Artists donated lights. And invitations were sent out not to celebrities, but to the fans who had supported them from day one. The little girl in the wheelchair from the first premiere was given front row seats with her mother. The night of the premiere, Anna stepped outside the old building and paused. The same nerves from the red carpet night returned. But this time, she was barefoot by choice. Keanu joined her at the door, also barefoot. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I'm not sure," she said honestly. "What if no one shows up?" Just then, the first wave of people arrived. Not in limos or designer gowns, but in jeans and handmade shirts that said Project Barefoot across the front. Families, young filmmakers, fans, students, people of all backgrounds and ages. and soon the place was packed. The lights dimmed. The screen flickered to life. The audience sat in silence as the story unfolded. Marisol's fall, her pain, her journey, the man who helped her, and the people who lifted her. By the time the final scene played, the barefoot stumble and the helping hands, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. When the film ended, no one clapped right away. They stood. Slowly, the entire audience rose to their feet in silence. Then someone began clapping. Another followed, and then the room exploded into applause. Not polite claps, but real thunderous applause that echoed through the walls of the little theater. Anna covered her mouth in shock. Keanu stood beside her, smiling gently. You showed them. Later that evening, as they greeted guests outside, a famous critic approached them, one who had never been kind to independent films. I was wrong about both of you, he said. This wasn't just a film. This was a mirror. Thank you. Anna looked at Keanu. Do you think Hollywood will notice? Maybe, he replied. But even if they don't, the world already did. Just then, a news anchor ran toward them, with a camera crew. Anna, Keanu, how does it feel knowing your film is already being called the most important movie of the year? Anna didn't answer right away. Instead, she bent down, picked up her shoes from the curb, and held them up. It started with a broken heel, she said softly, and it ended with something whole. The crowd clapped again. But not everyone was happy. Inside a luxury office building across town, Martin Creed watched the entire premiere online, his face red with fury. His name had become a warning sign in the industry. Studios were quietly backing away. Actors refused to work with him. He picked up his phone. Get me Keanu Reeves. Sir, his assistant said nervously. He declined all calls from your number. Martin slammed the phone down, but it was too late. The industry had changed. A world without shoes. A week after the Barefoot premiere, something strange began happening. People started posting videos online, walking barefoot through parks, sidewalks, school hallways, even red carpets. Each clip carried the same caption: I walk without shoes because kindness needs no polish. For Project Barefoot, it wasn't just a trend, it was a message. Celebrities, teachers, nurses, and even children joined in. Schools organized barefoot, days for charity. Shelters saw spikes in donations, and across the globe, people began sharing stories of personal failure and resilience. It was as if Anna's stumble had unlocked a universal truth, that everyone falls, but not everyone gets helped up, and maybe the world needed more hands, not more judgments. Anna and Keanu were invited to speak on morning shows and international panels. They turned most of them down. Not because they were arrogant, but because they didn't want to turn their message into a spectacle. But one invitation changed everything. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the very people who had once overlooked films like theirs, extended a personal invitation for them to present a special award at the Oscars. Anna hesitated. After everything? Keanu smiled. Maybe it's time we walk back in, but this time, on our terms. The night of the Oscars arrived. Outside the grand venue, the usual red carpet was buzzing with excitement and fashion statements. Camera, crews lined the walkways, but then the crowd gasped. Keanu Reeves and Ana de Armas arrived, not in designer shoes, but barefoot. They held hands, walking with calm confidence down the polished carpet. The cameras couldn't look away. Reporters didn't know what to say. The silence around their entrance was louder than applause. When they walked on stage to present the special humanitarian award, the crowd stood before they even spoke. Anna took a breath. I once thought tripping on the red carpet would ruin my career. Instead, it reminded me what really matters: compassion, courage, and standing back up. Keanu added, we don't need perfect shoes to tell powerful stories. We just need honest steps. When they finished, the audience erupted, not in industry applause, but in genuine admiration. That night, their film, Project Barefoot, was honored with a special recognition award for redefining the power of community, storytelling. But even that wasn't the end. Back at the small community theater, the students who helped create the film were now running weekly workshops for other aspiring filmmakers. The girl in the wheelchair, named Lila, had written her first short story, inspired by Anna's journey, and Danny, the student director, was now being courted by major studios for new projects, only she wasn't interested in their money. "I'll make films with heart," she told them, "not with fear." Anna and Keanu continued working together, not just as co-stars, but as friends who had discovered something deeper, shared purpose. One evening, Anna visited the same spot where she first fell on the red carpet. She stood there for a long moment. A young fan approached shyly, holding a notebook. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," Anna said, kneeling to meet the girl's eyes. "Do you ever wish it never happened? The fall?" Anna smiled gently. "No, because sometimes the stumble is the beginning of the story." Keanu watched, from a distance, smiling. He wasn't a hero in a cape. He didn't need one. He was just a man who believed that when someone falls, you don't watch, you walk forward. They didn't change the whole world, but they changed someone's world, and, in the end, that was enough.